Hi everyone, welcome to Invent Your Mind. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Gayani. I'm an intellectual property and business law attorney and an entrepreneur. So if you have joined me before, you know I have some interviews on my channel. I'm excited to bring another interview today with David Ferran, who is the founder of Torrey Project. We will talk more about why he created it and also get to some tips he's going to share with you for entrepreneurs and business people out there. So with that, just keep in mind, he's all for educational purposes only. And if you have specific questions, go seek, professional in that area. I'm not doing any endorsement or anything, but I'm doing is bringing you information so you know what is out there. Okay, with that, David, thank you for joining me. Um, how are you doing today?
Fantastic, Gayani. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be here today.
Um, so I know you by basically because I know a colleague that works do some things with Torrey Project, Isabel Wen, who I did do an interview on this channel that I could link it to, and she was talking about sustainable business practices and then creating a new social, like the social enterprise aspect of it. And so I wanted to kind of, before we get to the Torrey Project, kind of ask for you to kind of talk to us about your background a little bit so people know who you are and how you got here.
Sure. I spent the first 35 years of my career being part of the problem that Torrey Project is addressing today. When I got out of college, I started a business in my very first year. And at the age of 23, I raised my first $1 million in venture capital. And by the time I was 33, I had bought my first public company. And by the time I was 43, I'd done my first IPO. After that experience, I had an opportunity to become what's known as a turnaround expert and did public company turnaround work for several years. And then went into the world of mergers and acquisitions and founded a strategic advisory firm working in the technology sector. So I spent 35 years building companies, buying companies, selling companies, taking public companies private and private companies public, raising capital for companies of various sizes. And I got a chance to see the way the capital markets work, the way the stock markets work, the way business works. And now later in life, I'm starting to reflect on what I learned, and I'm thinking I learned maybe some of the wrong lessons.
Well, I always think we walk a path and there's no really, long as you're improving, it's not something wrong that you're changing things. So I'm all about compassion for yourself also with the missteps or steps you have taken and learning from it and growing from that experience. So I did think I really loved when I looked at your website, Torrey Project, what you're trying to do. So let's talk about it because I think there's a lot out there and, what is this model? Because I know you have an incubator there too, and you have some scholarships. So I think it's a really great way to mentor people and bring people to this area.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we started Torrey Project because we're really concerned about the way things are going. We're very concerned about environmental degradation and the state of our planet. I have 4 grandchildren, and I'm really worried about what we're leaving behind for them and for their grandchildren. And so that's one of our key areas of concern. The other is injustice, social economic injustice, which seems people are finally starting to wake up to and talk about. It's a little late if you ask me, but at least the conversation is picking up some momentum, and
Yeah.
I firmly support that, as does Torrey Project. Um, and as I said, though, I spent my entire adult career in the world of business, particularly in the technology sector, where bad business seems to be the norm. and and so a lot of the changes that I'm concerned about are ones that are typified by the startup community, Silicon Valley, venture capitalist, private equity, and what goes on in those spaces. And I believe that business has tremendous power, and it has the potential to be a tremendous force for good in the world. And it has not lived up to that. It hasn't taken that potential. In fact, I see that business has and continues to drive issues associated with environmental degradation and social injustice. So, to change the world, if you will, we have to change the way we do business. And nobody's going to listen to me and just turn around their multinational, multi-billion dollar company on a dime. That's not going to happen. But I believe that we have an opportunity to influence the future generations of entrepreneurs. And if we can do that, if we can provide future generations of entrepreneurs the information that I didn't have coming out of school, the awareness of these social problems, these environmental problems, and the awareness of how the way they run their business can impact those issues, then we can make a difference, of course, over the longer term.
Well, I think that's I think you hit the nail there, because you honestly, to change the whole dynamic, you had to start somewhere. And I could see the newer entrepreneurs and the startup people who are coming up, they are appears to be a lot more conscious. I'm just hoping that, I don't want to be jaded and hope once they start going into the market, that they might lose this like passion, because there's a certain level of everybody who started a company who start with a passion, and then it's get kind of, but I think the history that's really important. I just did a video on benefit corporation, BCorps, and social enterprises, and I'm going to be posting that too. It haven't been posted yet, so both of these are going to go up around the same time. And I think that's the key, right? Not only just saying you're going to do it, but implementing it, making sure you have the legal structure. Also, when you're incorporating a new company, putting it in there that it's your social mission. This is the benefit corporation for the purpose of, like you said, climate change, social justice. And I think, I really do hope, given we are in, we just this July 1st, 2020. I do like to give timing just because videos can be watched at any time. There's a lot of changes going on in US, and Black Lives Matter movement is happening, which is, like you said, is like, is enough is enough, right? Like there should have been these things gotten way out of hand. But at the same time, I think there's the momentum right now, and the business community is stepping up. They're seeing it and they're looking at it, not just looking at like putting policies, but how to actually implement it. So with that, I will ask you, so how do you, because you talked about when you came out of like business school, what's the difference between that and what the Torrey Project is trying to provide? Can you go a little more into that?
I sure can. And before I do, I just want to really acknowledge you for recognizing the important role that B Labs is playing in this overall movement. Without the support that they've provided with the legal benefit corp status, a lot of what we're trying to do at Torrey Project couldn't happen. And so we're a big fan of B Labs. And then, of course, the other one that we have to give a shout out to is a long-term stock exchange, because People can start a company using the principles taught by Torrey Project, and they can be operating with good values and with consideration and concern for all stakeholders. They can use what B Labs has provided, and they can incorporate using the benefit corp status. But if they don't have access to capital that is value aligned, they won't be able to get there. And of course, the capital markets have several tiers, the final one being the public markets. And if there wasn't the adoption of the long-term stock exchange, where would these benefit corporations go? Where would these purpose-driven companies go when it's time for them to get public? Without the long-term stock exchange, they've got nowhere to go, which means that the people providing capital before you go public don't want you to behave that way, because there's no way for them to make their money.
Exactly.
So it all fits together: the long-term stock exchange, B Labs, and Torrey Project. We're all working together towards the same goals.
It's a good ecosystem, I think, like you said. And coming back to that ecosystem, you need to have the legal structure, which is the benefit corporation. And when I was looking at this, I realized that not all states allow incorporating as a business benefit corporation. Only about 35 does right now. But, and then BCorps, just for anybody who's watching it, here's what's in my video, but I will put it out there. Go watch the video. But what BCorps is a nonprofit that does the certification for these businesses that have a social mission. And then you have Torrey Project. So let's go to the Torrey Projects, what it brings to, what is trying to mentor these entrepreneurs in and bring to market.
Sure. At the first stage, what we're doing is we're running a boot camp for entrepreneurs. And one of the things that's important to us about our boot camp is that it be available to everybody. So there can't be any bias or any discrimination. We want people, regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual preference, everybody is welcome at our table. And to do that, we don't charge anything for what we provide. It's all scholarship driven, and it's available to everybody. What we ask is that our entrepreneurs come to us with an open mind and a willingness to consider ways in which they could use the business that they're starting as a force for good in the world. It could be a nonprofit business. It could be a for-profit business. It might have a direct social impact, like a company that's taking plastics from the ocean and making shirts out of it. Or it might be an indirect social impact. We met a company that's making, of all things, trash bags, recyclable trash bags, but they're hiring visually impaired people wherever they can in their company. And so that's a way where they're taking something that's as simple as trash bags and having an indirect, very positive social impact. So that's what we try to do, is get our entrepreneurs thinking about how their business is going to have a positive social impact. Once that's done, it's like, okay, now how are we going to help you grow a successful business? And then the training becomes more technical. We get into some of the technical aspects of starting a business, but ones that you're not exposed to when you're at university, or for those entrepreneurs who didn't have the opportunity of attending university. We want our program to be available to everybody. So university degrees don't matter a thing to us. What are you bringing to the table?
With that, David, how do you screen people? Because obviously you had to apply and qualify for this boot camp. So how do you select the applicants? What is their criteria? Like you said, you're trying to be very inclusive, to bring people together. So is it a blind screening process? Because I think that's hard to do in this kind of setting, right? So Because if you're
Yeah,
trying to be inclusive, you can say, well, we are going to be blind, then we are not going to look at, so.
right. There's really only one criteria, and that is a willingness to seriously consider embracing what we call stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory has been around for a long time. Ed Freeman is probably the most world-renowned speaker and teacher on that topic today. He's at University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. But with stakeholder theory, basically, what we're saying is that the purpose of business goes beyond profit. It goes beyond maximizing shareholder value in the short term, and it includes having a proper return for all stakeholders, which would include your employees, your customers, your suppliers, your service providers, your business partners, the communities you do business in, the environment, and society at large. We believe that an entrepreneur should have a plan for how every one of those stakeholders is going to benefit by the organization they're building. If we were to run into an entrepreneur that was unwilling to accept that and was dedicated to what we call shareholder primacy, the notion that the purpose of business is profit and only profit, then we would suggest that they look elsewhere. Other than that, if you've got a pulse, if you've got a heart, if you've got a vision, come see us. You're welcome.
Awesome. And how often do you have this boot camp series?
Well, in our first year, 2019, we ran 4 cohorts. And this year, actually, it was our first calendar year, so 2 of those were in January, and then we ran into COVID. We haven't run one since then. We are hoping to be able to responsibly run a cohort in October. And of course, being responsible and being an example of a socially responsible organization, we have to be cautious with that. But at least we have a desire and a dream that we're going to be back getting together in October with our entrepreneurs.
How many applicants do you usually take in? Is it depending on how many quality applicants you found?
Yes, and as a startup organization in our first year, having too many applicants wasn't really a problem.
Yeah.
We hope that as people learn about what we're doing, and as people really pick up the vision of what business can be in terms of being a force for good in the world, we hope we're going to be swamped with applicants. But for now, what we do is we just need to size the cohorts appropriately. We found that a good size for a group of entrepreneurs is between 5 and 10. And
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
so we like to have 5 to 10 entrepreneurs per cohort.
I was just gonna ask, so it sounds like it's all in person. Have you thought about taking it virtual, since some of these, COVID stuff could be sticking around? And also it gives the opportunity to expand to other because we are in San Diego, we are in Southern California. So bringing in people who are at other parts of the country or the world.
Yes, and I'll give you the short version of that, but yes, our plan is, at this point, we're really developing our boot camp, and we're developing the curriculum. We're learning. We're a young organization, and we started with our MVP, which was in June of 2019, and we've iterated 4 times now. So we think we're getting better with experience. So the way that we're planning to roll it out, because indeed we want to have global impact, so we have to have a place in the world. The way that we're going to do that is by first trying to get it pretty rock solid in San Diego. We have an invitation from 3 universities now to bring our boot camp to their campuses. And we have a plan for rolling out our boot camp at universities across the country. And it'll be the in-person model. Now, in parallel with that, we're going to work to develop an online model. And I'm not really impressed with a lot of the online courses that I've taken thus far. They're, you get the information, but they're rather tedious. And
You're not having the interaction as well, right?
right. And so we've got some challenges that we're going to address before we roll out our online model, but we will roll out an online model when we think we're ready. We also are looking to partner with an organization on the East Coast that teaches the same material that we teach, but they do it in an accelerator model. So where we're a 4-week course, they're a 4-month course. So they teach based on the same principles we teach. They believe the same things we believe. They're pursuing the same goals we are. They're just doing it in a much deeper fashion and with a small equity investment. So if I can give a shout out to Conscious Venture Labs in Baltimore, run by my good friend Jeff Cherry, somebody that you definitely want to get on your podcast.
Absolutely, would love that.
They do great work. They're in inner city Baltimore. They also are big on diversity and inclusion, and they've got a great program. So we're going to work with them and help them expand that accelerator program so that people can go through a 4-week boot camp, and where appropriate can then do a deeper dive in a 4-week accelerator program.
Thank you for bringing that up. I actually have some roots in Baltimore because I went to Hopkins for graduate school. So, so I only showed the stint because I only lived there for about 2 years. I was in a PhD program, so my lab was at NIH, which was in Bethesda, Maryland. But Baltimore have a lot of things going on, and it's good to hear that this is happening because when I first started grad school, the harbor area was all not very nice. But when I visited just few years ago, it's all very built up. There's a lot of new businesses. So, I think it's a good place to bring that kind of education. So,
Great. Well,
with that, I think maybe we will get to your tips kind of for the entrepreneurs and startup people out there, like what you consider some success tips. So I kind of put this on you at the last minute. Sorry. So, but I
no
thought
problem.
I can't miss the opportunity. You've been in this industry for a long time. You're mentoring a lot of people. So I was like, I got to ask you these tips.
No problem. After 35 years, I've got a lot of scars, and I could offer a lot of tips. But I think for the purpose of today's conversation, where I'd like to go is to just suggest that when entrepreneurs are starting a business, that they spend some time getting really clear on what their values are and what the values of their organization are going to be. And by the way, if there isn't a real alignment between your personal values and the values of your organization, you might want to take another look. And so getting alignment there, I think, is really important. And then if you intend to maintain that alignment, my second tip is before you sell your first share of stock, before you take your first dollar of equity or even debt, make sure that you're getting your capital from sources that are value aligned. And I would say that that's the subject of an entirely different podcast, perhaps, because finding good capital, what Torrey Project calls good capital, is not necessarily easy. And there's more capital being directed towards what we would say are stakeholder focused businesses than there was in the past. There's nowhere near enough, but it's out there. If you mindfully look for it, you can find good capital from value aligned sources, and you'll be able to maintain your values and your integrities as you build your business. My third tip would be, when thinking about any aspect of your business, think about what's in it for them. What's in it for the other side? It's really easy to be aware of what's in it for you and to look at it through that lens. I spent 35 years of my life looking at it through that lens, and I accomplished a lot. But I'm not necessarily satisfied. I believe I could have accomplished more, and I could have been a more peaceful source on the planet as I was doing it. So really thinking about the impact of your business and the way you conduct your business on all others, I think is absolutely paramount.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are such great tips because I'm a true believer in working with the alignment, working at what you're passionate about and bringing your skill set and tying it together. And they're part of you, you had to trust, that everything will work out. Like even if you had to walk away from certain opportunity, like an investor that doesn't align with your mission and your values, I think there's always, I think as an entrepreneur, you're always worried, well, what if I don't get this? Then I'm going to, I might not survive. But I do think you have to have a trust that, you will get a better deal than compromising, especially if it's a deal breaker. Like if you're thinking about social justice issues or the climate change issues, and you get an investor who doesn't believe in that cause or doesn't value it as you do, it's that's where the change must happen. You have to stand and take that, trust that you will find that, because there are a lot of people who are conscious, who are becoming conscious, like you, right, David? Like you said, you have walked a path that you're not now, like you're now rethinking some of it, right? So that is happening too. And, I think that's the key. So with that, I will ask my last question I have for all my interview people is, what do you have a mindfulness type of practice? What do you do to kind of de-stress?
Sure. Um, well, I have over the past 20 years been working to develop a spiritual practice, and it has become my foundation for all that I do. Um, I enjoy meditation, but I'm not really good at sitting still very long. So I found Tai Chi, and I found that I can do a lot of mindfulness and centering through my Tai Chi practice, and I enjoy that very much.
Love that, because I tell people you don't have to be able to meditate for 5-10 minutes. If you can still, then do a walking meditation. There's a lot of ways to bring meditation and mindfulness into your practice. I know sometimes I interchangeably use them, they're a little different, but I think bringing mindfulness to your everyday activities, what you do bring you a lot more relaxed, kind of a little bit better kind of anxiety, low anxiety kind of energy to your life. So, and I think as entrepreneurs, you're always bombarded with so many things to do. So that's part of the reason why I always ask the guests I'm bringing in also, what are they doing? Because, I think it's important to know that everybody do have something usually, and the reason they're successful is because they have other things that they're tying in that bring it all together. So with that, thank you so much for joining me today, and maybe I will invite you to come back again to talk about the money, because I do think that's a really important part for entrepreneurs. And one of these days when I could get back on your schedule.
I'd
you
love
know
to do that. It's been a great pleasure, and I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk about the Torrey Project and hopefully move the world in the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so excited for Torrey Project, and I wish it all the best. And, and I will put all the information for those who are watching below this video. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. And if you want to connect with David, I'm going to put his information below. And if you want to apply for Torrey Project, if you're in Southern California, that's information will be below too, the boot camps. And with that, thank you for joining us, and I will see you next time. Bye.